Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out the prototype version of a game called Even the Stars, a minimalistic space exploration game that was from the Space Cowboy Game Jam. Now this is a game that it really kind of defies explanation in some ways, although in other ways it's almost not all that hard to describe at all. It's sort of one of those cases where it's better than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. And this is a game that I almost entirely passed up, because I actually had seen it when it was pretty much brand new, and I looked at the title screen and I'm like, well, is this like a text adventure? What's going on here? And I had a bit of a silly bias that I should have just ignored. But thankfully somebody on Twitter suggested that I check this out, so I took a little bit of a deeper look into it, and I'm glad I did, because it's actually quite cool. So why don't I show off the credits real fast so you can see what we're looking at here. And those are the people responsible, just a single developer and a single musician. And surprisingly, a pretty atmospherically cool situation resulted from the conglomeration of the two working together. So let's go and actually start up a run, I guess we'll call it, because it's not a typical game, and there's a lot of things about this that seem simple at face value, but end up being cooler than you might expect. So, first impression, what do you think? We've got basically a blank canvas of space. There is nothing here, and we're presented with two options. And note the fact that we are not given any kind of tutorials or really any instructions whatsoever. We can either warp or we can use our radio. And if we type in radio, what happens? Absolutely nothing. So we're noted that we are at the current coordinates of 48, 74, 46, and we've got what looks to be a completely full fuel tank. And we're just kind of drifting through space at the moment, and if I wanted to, I could actually use the arrow keys to spin around and see all sides of my ship. A ship, by the way, that does look different each time you play the game, although I'm not sure quite to what constraints those things change. But I have seen at least 3 or 4 different ship designs, and I've done a few looks through this game, although I haven't played all the way through it more than once. So why don't we go and do a warp here, and we'll see if we can maybe find somewhere a little bit more entertaining to look at. We can choose from any 6 numbers, and it will take us to a coordinate location. And there are, as you can imagine, whatever the math turns out to be combinations for all the permutations of 6 digits. So there's a lot of things that you could potentially go and do in this. So I'm going to go to 110055, and coordinates are acquired. Let's press enter, and we can warp away, and we may or may not find something cool. That's kind of the whole premise to Even the Stars, where every time you warp, you don't know what you're about to find. And if we do run into a planet, well, this is the general presentation of what we're going to be looking at. So our ship seems to be orbiting rather closely to the planet, which is, I guess, kind of good in case we wanted to land. And I did see that there was some kind of a structure. So we're going to use the controls that are now given at the bottom left corner here to steer ourselves into a position where maybe we could check out what this is about. We found some ancient ruins. So I'm just going to kind of bring the ship down by holding down S until it stops moving. And then we're actually going to go into type mode rather, and we're going to try our radio first, just in case that does anything. Doesn't seem like it. Well, I don't hear anything anyway. Oh. There's some kind of crazy, like, 1940s sounding sci-fi thing. Alright, let's disembark now. And we'll see what happens next. Alright, we see ancient ruins. We have the choice to stay or leave. So we're down 1 fuel nugget, and we can stay here if we choose to. And what's that going to do? It's going to allow us to enter a log entry for these coordinates. That way, later on, if we're interested, we can actually figure out what we had seen and what we have done. So I'm going to type, cool ruins, bro, and that way we know. So it pops up a little message, you are young. And I guess it wouldn't take all that much to figure out what that might mean, but, you know, it's kind of a nice little idea that we've integrated something to make this experience perhaps a little bit more personal. So why don't I hit leave, and we'll head out. We now have the option to steer our ship around more if we choose, or we could actually just take off from this planet, and I think that's probably about what we're going to do. So we're going to warp again. Oh, error, engines are off. That is a good point. So why don't we take off? And you'll notice the ancient ruins, since they're just sprites, kind of just spin around to meet us wherever we happen to go. And it's a funny idea, too, that we seem to be looking at what seems like one of those old-style kind of tube monitors for our UI here. And I've seen this done before, and sometimes it kind of complements the situation. In this case, I'm not sure it necessarily does, but it also doesn't really hinder things that much either. So we'll just get in the proper gear here, and warp again. And we can go to, well, any random string of numbers. Why don't we do all 7s, because that's probably pretty lucky, right? There is nothing here. Okay, well, we can try a radio just in case. And I just accidentally hit enter twice, so it says command unknown. You hear anything? The stillness of space, perhaps. I have to wonder how many different combinations with these assets and sound effects there might be, because it seems like I've run into a number of different planets with various types of configurations, although probably they don't depart from the traditional kind of spherical planet sense more than, or as much as I'd like them to. So that's apparently Lucky Sevens, is floating in space with some asteroids. So why don't we try 80, 60, 50, and see if that does anything. So the nice thing about this experience is basically every time you play it, unless you choose to go to the same coordinates, you're probably going to have a slightly different experience. And I found a space fuel station. That's kind of nice to know, considering we're down 3 fuel nuggets. So why don't I land, and we'll go ahead and fill up on fuel. Disembark. And so we can fill up. And like I mentioned, there's not all that many instructions that you can choose to use here. And then we can stay. And we'll just make a note that this is gas supply here. You are young. Okay, leave. So you're probably starting to get the impression here of what it is that is kind of cool about Even the Stars. It's a customized individual journey that actually does have a bit of a beginning, middle, and end to it, even though it might not seem like it yet. And even though there's so little to interact with, it's really just about letting yourself just go and experience the ride along the way. And that's what I think I was kind of missing on the first go. I was kind of just waiting for something cool to happen, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's nothing really major happening as we go warping from planet to planet. And after it kind of came to its end, I figured out, well, maybe not everything is something that needs, you know, big punctuation marks all throughout. So let's go 42, 18, 90, and see how that works. Alright, we found a pinkish-looking planet with a greenish-blue atmosphere. Is there anything on this particular planet? So we've got a number of moons in various directions. I can't tell if I like the art style of the planets being super blocky like that or not. I mean, it kind of does work with the style that we're going for, because mostly everything in this game is kind of chunky looking. And if you really wanted to get into it, I'm sure you could probably go pretty nuts with graphical effects. And I would kind of like to see that idea as well. And considering this is a prototype, I'm running this through my head of whether or not, like, most of the things that look unfinished are unfinished intentionally, or if they're just a prototype. And it's not really for me to say, I guess, which is which. It could be just said that this is just the art style of the way this game is going to look, and maybe there are more features, but this is generally the way that it was supposed to be. Or maybe these are all just placeholder art assets, and everything could change, given that this did decide to be worked upon further. So let's go to 45, 21, 39. There we go. I could also see this very easily being adapted into something like an FTL-style game, where there's actually, like, real events that could happen, space trading, you get attacked, maybe you need to save and rescue somebody, maybe you run into some people along the way, maybe you find a particularly interesting planet that you want to hang out on. Oh, I found some pink clouds. I guess that's pretty cool, right? So let's disembark, and we can have a closer look. Maybe we'll spend a couple of years here hanging out, so let's stay. Yeah, let's write a login as well. Sweet pink clouds. You're in your prime. Alright, so I could get a lot of work done, apparently. And if I choose to, I can actually stay here multiple days. And we already kind of wrote an entry in. And I'm still in my prime. Let's stay again. And say no again. Oh, now I'm getting old. So apparently space-time happens pretty quickly. So now we're actually going to leave. and we can visit a couple more places before we wrap up this episode. So let's go to switch to type mode. Let's warp. Oh, well, we need to actually be flying first, so let's get off the ground. There we go. Kind of wish there were more, like, solar events as well, seeing different suns and things, all with different intensity beams. Oh, a bunch of huts. I don't think I've ever run into this particular one before. Why don't we stop here as well? You know, I could have lived my whole life on this planet and never known right on the other side there was some kind of civilization. So let's disembark again. You can land on any planet, by the way. There just might not be anything to see. Hang out! I've never seen this command. This is kind of awesome. You wander an immense plaza. Alright, fair enough. You are getting old. I really thought that just said you see a bunch of hats. I'm like, oh, those are like tall, silly bowler hats now, huh? Alright, leave. And we'll take off again. And we'll go to 687099. It's hard to find just the right number sometimes. You just gotta kind of search around a little bit. Oh, this one's neat. So we've got a kind of a buttered popcorn-colored planet with a ring. Oh, is this like a civilization or something? What is this? Ruins of a big city. What happened to all the cities? Everything is all wrecked. Alright, so let's disembark here as well. Should probably check the radio more occasionally. So let's stay. Yes. Ruined city. There was no hangout option, so I guess that's kind of how that's gonna go. So you'll see we've zoomed away from our ship, and what that means is we've actually reached the end of our journey. You passed away. See, I was getting old. So this whole existence that we just experienced was actually an entire lifetime, and we got to have our own personalized journey from point A to point B, and various points in between. So, what's really nice is we actually get this 3D map of all the places that we visited from where we started, which is that kind of cross-shaped thing up in the sky there, that ship. And then we go, cool ruins, bro, and then we track that through to, looks like the asteroid belt, then we've got the gas, then we go down to nothing, sweet pink clouds, and then the ruined city. So it looks like that's going to be this particular journey. And we can actually save this picture as well to have sort of a postcard for the future in case we choose to do another one later on. So it's a very strange game. It's not really like much else that I've seen, but it is very cool. And if they actually go ahead and introduce more atmospheric elements, maybe let us walk around a little bit, or maybe there's more meaningful decisions to be made along the way, I could see this being a really surprisingly odd, off-kilter, and immersive, beautiful experience altogether. And like I said, it feels a little bit like poetry. The first time when I read, you know, "You're young," I kind of just didn't really think about it. I saw the words there, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what that means, but I don't really know what that means in the context of the game. And then eventually I saw "You were in your prime." I'm like, all right, I'm kind of getting an idea here. And then it's like, "You're old." Oh, okay. So I guess that's how that's going to go. And, you know, sure enough, I got to live out my life. And it was a cool time. I enjoyed it. I definitely recommend you go ahead and check out Even the Stars. You're going to have a different experience every time. You might even find new things, new obstacles, or places to visit that, well, I've never seen. Like I said, I found the huts, and I've never been able to hang out before, so maybe there are other commands like that. And it seems like the infrastructure here is rife for all kinds of expansion, so if the developers choose to, I imagine they could go pretty nuts with this concept and all of the frameworks already established. Anyway, that's going to be another episode. Link for this is going to be right in the description. You can play it right in your browser. It's totally free. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. If you have any particularly cool places to visit, feel free to drop the coordinates in the comments. Or if you just had a particularly interesting story about an event that might have happened, feel free to chime in and just let me know what you think of this concept in a comment right below the video. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, as always, consider leaving a like. It does help me out a whole bunch so more people can find out about sweet, crazy exploration, experimental games like this. Why don't we go back to the menu here? Yes, please. And yeah, I'll be back again tomorrow. New episodes of Indie Impressions go up every single day, so I look forward to showing you another game tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you'll have a fantastic night. I'll talk to y'all later.